Fabian, co-founder of LUKSO. Welcome to the show.
Hello, nice to be here.
So, Fabian, you have a really rich history in blockchain. You are credited as the author of the ERC-20 standard, and you were an early developer at the Ethereum Foundation. Um, Tell us about your history and how you ended up at the Ethereum Foundation and really in blockchain in general. And then I'd love to get into the ERC-20 standard and your thoughts around standards.
Yeah. Um, I'm coming from a web developer background that I teach myself since I was pretty much since I was 14, 15. I started building websites in the 90s, and I worked first at startups, wrote a book about some JavaScript library, and knew how to build full stack applications. And when Ethereum started, or before it started, actually before they even made a fundraise, they decided that they also wanted to open an office in Berlin. So I met these guys pretty much before they made the fundraise, like a day before here in Berlin. And I kind of knew that like the idea of Ethereum was like the idea of like creating this internet computer decentralized backend, if you will, right? Like the server for the decentralized web. And I also knew that, okay, you not only need to build the low level architecture of the network and then hope people come, but you need to kind of show them how this works, what applications can be built, how does it work, how does it look like, and so on. And because I built single page applications, so I was able to build applications that only run in your browser using JavaScript, I kind of knew that it could be helpful. So I reached out to them at some point and pretty quickly joined Ethereum in January 2015. That was 6 months before we started mainnet, and built the Mist browser. The Mist browser was the first Web3 browser that was pretty much we started this when we started the network. We launched it. It was the Ethereum wallet also. It was the official wallet. And the idea or like the vision came from Alex van der Sande. He was the one who kind of like mapped out this idea of what Ethereum could be used for. And he actually made a video that you can still find on YouTube. It's called Ethereum Mist. And that was created in 2014 November. So 8 months before the Ethereum mainnet started. And in that video, he kind of laid out the interface. He laid out the vision of what could be built on blockchain. Not because he came up with all of this himself, but he basically took things that were around, discussed at the time, and he just put them in a nice interface. But he had no one really to fully build it out. And when I came along, I was just a perfect fit to be able to like build this out. So we built the Mist browser, which then inspired MetaMask. During this time of me building the Mist browser, I had to basically kind of like build work on all the developing tools like that you need as a DApp developer. How does your DApp talks to smart contracts? I needed to work on Web3.js, for example, which was the most used JavaScript library at the time, or for the first 4 years of Ethereum. We had to figure everything out pretty much in these early days, and like I helped standardize a lot of things. So I kind of like slipped this way into the standardization route.
That is so exciting. So it's been a roughly 10 years now since you proposed the ERC-20 standard. Um, you know, if you take a step back and you look at the last 10 years, um, did you have any idea that it would become such a foundational piece of Web3 infrastructure? And what are your thoughts over the last 10 years? Like, how do you think has blockchain achieved everything that you hoped it would? And where are we in terms of its maturity?
So did I, I knew Ethereum is going to be a game changer. I knew it the moment I heard about it, just because blockchain can be just so much more and can do so much more than just, being like a token that you can move around like Bitcoin. There were already other ideas before Ethereum, but it never in this comprehensive generic way. So when we are looking back at Ethereum, I mean, we have now 10 years in blockchain, and this is actually the interesting thing. We have 10 years in blockchain, and we're still kind of stuck without really mainstream adoption. We have pretty much everything is just revolving around tokens. And because of tokens and because of ERC-20, everything is wallets, tokens, and trading. That means, yes, it expanded the abilities you can do on blockchain in the finance sector, but the rest of the world is not using blockchain because not everybody's interested in buying and selling something. And not everybody's just interested in trading and making money. And if we look at the 10 years that we have right now, and then we see meme coins as being it was the prevailing wave, the last wave that just pretty much ended, I would say. And before that was NFTs. It basically shows us that we came to the extreme of tokenization, like not because we moved tokenization beyond the trading, but we came to the end time of like what could be done with tokens and trading. And it's kind of like funny to see, but also a little sad to see, because when I told you about the Mist browser, the ideas that Alex put in that video, there was already like DAOs and family trust and voting things and creating communities and like he already mapped out so many things. And in the last 10 years of Ethereum, we have barely achieved more than just the trading aspect of it. Yes, we built a lot of tools and protocols and DeFi and lending and God knows what, but it didn't really move beyond that. And actually, there's a reason for that. And that's the reason it has been really like on my mind for the last 7 years, rebuilding and rethinking the fundamentals that prevent us, or which have prevented us, have prevented us really from moving beyond this just the financial aspect of blockchain and preventing people from really getting into the space.
And why is that? Why haven't we progressed very much in the last seven or so years?
Yeah, in simple terms, is if everything is a wallet, then everything is about money and trading. So if your blockchain core account is just a wallet, then this is a synonym with I hold assets in there. They have to do with value. I spent on them something, or I hope they go up in value, and that's pretty much it. If we make a wallet a profile and we make it humanly identifiable, meaning that now it's something that I care more about because I get followers and I use it as my social internet identity, now that wallet becomes more than just a place to hold assets. This becomes now a place that could be my reputation, that can be my website, this can be my dashboard for the public, that could be the beginning of a collective or of a community, and this could be a decentralized organization, or this could be my brand that is able to transact globally, but also do normal products or whatever we do in Web 2. We need to make people first care about those decentralized accounts. That's step number one. And only then protocols will come and evolve that actually support that Web3 functionality. Because when you look currently into the DApp space, you have a few popular apps, and this is then Uniswap. It's maybe some lending or staking protocol. Again, everything just revolves around making money. And there's thousands of more decentralized applications. You can go to DappRadar, you can check them out. The problem is they're super hidden, so you barely see them. You barely find this. You only really know about the popular ones, and that's what we use. All the rest get forgotten in the dustbin of the Web3 deep space, let's call it. And on top of this, they don't really have users.
Yeah.
Because the top ones get all the users and the rest don't get any users. So the moment you want to build something social, the moment you want to build something that's just beyond trading tokens, you have a hard time getting any user, because there are no real users that use blockchain on a day-to-day basis if it's not about moving their token from an exchange to another place and maybe swapping it somewhere or staking it or lending it somewhere, or buying meme coins, as we have seen in the last few months.
Yeah.
And
So
that's because the fundamentals are just not they're not user friendly, number one, and they are not made for something to care about.
It's almost like on the one hand, the public key cryptography, the private and public key pair, as your wallet, it really kind of carried us forward. I mean, it was an innovation, really. It was a huge innovation, I think. But at the same time, it also prevented us from moving forward because if everything is a wallet, as you say, then everything becomes a financial transaction. But it ignores all the other types of connections and types of interactions that we could have on chain.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you've channeled your energies now into LUKSO, the current project that you are leading. With LUKSO, is this the primary problem you're trying to solve? The problem of I guess digital identity and also fixing kind of a piece of Web3 infrastructure that's kind of been missing?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really simple. When you look at Ethereum, ERC-20, which I proposed in 2015, which then kicked off ICOs, kicked off DeFi, kicked off everything literally we have today. And because ERC-20 was adopted everywhere, everything that we have right now is somewhat compatible to ERC-20. So everything kind of came out of that one single standard. The whole blockchain space today came out of this one single standard, more or less, and plus blockchain itself. Ethereum was always meant for more. As you can see in this Mist browser video, the ideas were many, and they were far beyond. Like the finance part of it was actually a very small part of this Mist browser vision. The bigger part was the social aspect, was the network states and decentralized communities part. But because we didn't have any kind of like standards that really support this, and there's one kind of problem. Once you have a network effect around something, the network effect rolls. Now everybody's built stuff around tokens and God knows what. But it's really hard if you have a certain standard to then go and change it. Because if you want to come up with a new token standard, if you want to come up with radical new standards, it's really hard to tell people on an existing network, hey, can you please just redeploy your tokens? Could you do a token migration? Or even Ethereum is trying to introduce a smart account or like advocate for the development and the standardization of it. And, it barely has adoption yet, right? And then we see, proposals in the forks that try to make it easier, where you can convert an EOA into a smart account, and even that is struggling. So sometimes what you need to do is you need to start from scratch. You need to go back to the fundamentals, evolve the fundamentals without necessarily trying to be backwards compatible, so that you have the right foundations. Because on Ethereum, the only foundation we really have that is widely adopted is ERC-20. Everything else is just systems on top. And that's pretty much it. Like many kind of like, derivatives and evolutions of this, but the core foundation is still the same. But when you go and you start from scratch and you think, okay, if we want to make an Ethereum, but that's human friendly, like what's the most primary thing we need to solve? We need to first create an on-chain account that's not just a wallet, but it's also a profile that can be properly managed from many different devices, where security is not tied to a single private key, but it can be tied to your devices. It can be changed over time, where you can have recovery options and people can build new kind of recovery options. You need to also be able to store information at that account, and not just in an external system like ENS, where you have an ENS registry and then you have your wallet, right? But those are only loosely connected, because you could switch your ENS to another wallet. So your whole history on chain constantly changes, while your identity metadata kind of stays here. You need to make sure these are hardwired. You need to make sure that the on-chain identity that acts holds the same metadata in the same place, in the same smart contract, and it can't be decoupled, because otherwise it's not a reliable identity for the long term. And then you need the ability that your account can react, that it can react automatically on incoming tokens, assets, a protocol following you, or whatever people want to invent. They need to be able to interact with your account, and your account should ideally be able to automatically act. So these were the fundamentals that I figured out would need to be in a proper account that can be used for things far beyond just, the money part. So that's the fundamentals. And then you also need to evolve the token standards, right? You need to evolve the standards that have been there, because in the last 10 years of Ethereum, we had a lot of learnings, and we are missing the notifications thing I just talked about, right? That you can inform a recipient. We're missing the ability to be more flexible with metadata, because maybe people want to attach an icon of their token. Maybe they want to change the text, right? Right now, if you have a token project and you want to tell something to your community, you have to go to market cap and update the text there. Or you have to go to Twitter, and then it's really hard for the person even to find, like, oh, what's the official source of this token? But what about putting it right at the smart contract of the token, which you definitely know would be the absolute truth, right? Because that is what is the token contract itself. So if that can update the metadata, that's definitely the project team who did it, because no one else could do that. So there's a lot more things we could do on these core standards. And basically, in a nutshell, LUKSO is Ethereum because it uses the same chain technology, which is, in my opinion, the most advanced consensus and most decentralized platform, including many different clients, so many different network node developers, many different groups work on the same protocol, has the largest developer community in general. So it has the best tech on that front. But in order to really introduce new standards, you need to start a new network. You need to start it from scratch. You kind of need to start Ethereum again, if you will, because then you can introduce all those standards and say, hey, you come to LUKSO, use the new token standards. You want to create an account? Create a universal profile, create a smart account. Don't just use MetaMask or whatever else there was the last 10 years. Do it the new way, because then you get a chain where everybody's a profile, where everybody uses the new standards, and where different protocols can be built that just couldn't be built anywhere else right now, because they're also limited because everybody ran with ERC-20, So in a way, LUKSO is Ethereum with new standards, if you will. This is just like, start Ethereum from scratch with a better foundation. And that's what we basically did.
Let's definitely get into LUKSO. I want to ask a question prior to us doing that. I mean, everything you're sharing makes sense. Going back to fundamentals, starting over, if you want to build something with kind of new primitives, or new features, we need to look at kind of what we've built in the last 10 years and see if we can improve upon it. I wonder what the reception has been like in the Ethereum community when you've spoken about this. Have you, I'm sure some people revere you because of, you invented ERC-20, which is, the most widely used smart contract token standard, right? But I also wonder if there are some Ethereans that are, probably hear what you say and say, what are you saying, Fabian? Like, you are, it's anathema. Do you hear, I guess, both sides of the story there? Or both reactions?
So, I mean, this is really a tricky one, right?
Yeah.
So, and actually, because I created ERC-20, or I proposed, the specification, I'm the best equipped to actually make a very radically different proposal.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, no one else has the balls to do that. No one else. I mean, it is the hardest part. The hard path is to literally go and try to change the fundamentals. I mean, it's what Tesla did with cars, right? Like, he literally said, oh, scrap all the old stuff. We build the car from scratch. It was a tough thing to do, but right now we can clearly see electric cars are the future. It's the predominant car of the future. That's a certain. And sometimes it needs to be done that way. It's not the easiest path, in fact. And you do get tribalism. Absolutely, you get tribalism. I mean, this happened when Ethereum came, because Bitcoin tribalism kicked in, and people were like, why are you going to this new thing? But it's Bitcoin to rule them all. And there was in 2014 and 15, I mean, we had exactly the same reaction. And the thing is, it's not LUKSO versus Ethereum, because we're using actually that full tech stack as well.
Yeah.
But if you want to experiment on a whole new set of standards, you need a new frontier. So you can see LUKSO a little bit as like the frontier to experiment with these new standards. Should we be successful, which I believe we will, because there's nothing comparable, then eventually those standards will also come back. In fact, universal profiles are cross-chain. We will make it so that you can use your universal profile on any other EVM chain. Like you can use the same profile address on Base, Ethereum, Polygon, Optimism, wherever, but only on LUKSO. They are the most powerful because here all the other standards also exist that everybody's using that interact nicely with your profiles. So while you can get the benefits of having a proper smart contract account that you can properly manage through multiple devices and all of the bells and whistles I explained before, only on LUKSO, you get the automated notification of assets that come in. You get the ability to build protocols around the interaction between your profile and other things that you just don't get that easily on another chain. But when it comes to Ethereum developer and former Ethereum developers, I mean, the ones who were OG, there's actually two paths they took. Either they made some money and they decided, oh yeah, I'm good here. I did a lot of work. I'm now doing chilling. Or there's the others who went head down and building their own project or work on other things that are so busy that they're not really like spending a lot of time, including myself, like spending a lot of time like studying all these kind of different other projects and things that come out. And specifically what we build is not like ERC-20. It's not just like 6-7 functions and you read them and you think, oh, makes sense, like it's a more complex system. It on the end allows for more things, but fundamentally it's a little more complex to understand at first. So it's not that easy to digest, just showing up and looking at it 5 minutes and you get it. You need to dive a little bit into it to understand that this is actually really a game changer. And that's kind of what prevents people. So, and then we have also this natural feeling that if there's something new, most of the time we think, okay, first this needs to become big and popular. And when it does, then I will spend the time and look at it. Like we heard about AI for, the last like 15 years at least. And only when ChatGPT then showed it what it can do, then people started paying attention.
Yeah.
It's not that there was no research before and people talked about it. They were. So in our case, it will be the same. Like only when people realize that this is actually the crack that solves the onboarding for everyone and makes Web3 actually interesting to the rest of the world, which we call the new Web3. Only then really like they will start to pay attention more deeply. And this is just a human and it's a natural human behavior. Like it's this. Yeah, we all have that, right? You can only pay attention to so much, and even if somebody says they have like the golden egg, that doesn't mean you instantly jumping and try to investigate. You rather think, I'll wait until I see it.
Well, let's dive in and see it. You mentioned you wanted to show a little bit of LUKSO today.
Yeah.
And let's go ahead and do that now. And if you could describe for the audience what they're looking at so that they can really experience kind of this vision that you have.
Yeah, so there's a platform called Universal Everything. Think of it like a universal interface. And it's kind of like right now, let's say, the most elegant window into universal profiles and into LUKSO itself. So LUKSO is the blockchain behind it, and you see there's transactions and people do stuff and so on. It's still very technical looking currently. And you have 30,800 profiles right now. And this is only profiles that actually have a name and profile pictures. This is people that created profiles. And there's plenty of them. And you can basically go and check out. Let's look for Leadfoot, for example. He is a DJ. So it's a little bit like it's a wallet on the end. It's a smart contract account, so it can do anything your MetaMask and your smart contract account can do that, or like your EOA, your MetaMask could do on the blockchain. But it also holds information. In this case, profile information. He has also created its own NFT. He has a SoundCloud here, loaded a website, and like a tool that I built. A tool to create tokens, and he has even universal swaps in here. So the idea is basically universal everything is a place where you have your profile and you can put stuff underneath, a little bit like a MySpace, but the things you load in here are actually other websites or could be even Web3 apps. Like for example, this is universal swaps, and I could one-click connect here, and I could now instantly swap my Lux to something else. And obviously, because it's Web3, you can obviously showcase your tokens and collectibles that you have. So this is just the whatever you can do right now in Web3, except that all of these use the new token standards. So they have a few more things. For example, the creator of this can be verified, and the creator itself is a universal profile. And that universal profile basically says, I created this asset, and the asset says, I'm being created by or I was created by this person. And now you have a two-way on-chain verification that says this is an authentic object. And the person who created this is actually Karlabe, that's Peter Sigali, and Peter Sigali is the lead Go Ethereum developer of the Go Ethereum client. I worked together with him. Actually, he was hired after me. I was also part of the Go Ethereum team back in the day. And he had this idea of creating a on-chain fractal generator. And basically, it uses a lot of gas to generate these images. And so this is the interesting thing is, in order to create this NFT, you just mint it, and then you need to send transaction to generate and improve the fractal on-chain directly in the smart contract. And because he couldn't do this on Ethereum, because the gas is just too expensive, he chose to do this on LUKSO. Also because we have these new standards, they're more flexible, they allow you to do a lot more things, so he could really build this out. I think actually he came up with this implementation of this fractal algorithm when he joined Ethereum back in 2016 or 15 or 16. This was actually the reason why he got hired, I think. I think he made his master thesis for this. And what's happening right now, actually, almost 50% of the LUKSO network is used to just refine those fractals. Because the hope is if LUKSO becomes popular and the gas prices go up, it becomes extremely expensive. I mean, some of them have billions of gas used. This is the website that he built like 2 years ago. If, for example, this is the top one. This is currently, I think it's 2.5 trillion gas were used just to generate this image. I mean, at some point they don't change anymore, and there's lots of them. So there's a whole community that does nothing else than do this. They generate these, they mint them and generate these burn pics. I'm also a big collector of it because, in fact, this is probably the coolest and the most real on-chain NFT ever in existence. That's better than ordinals because it's literally a fractal that's fully on-chain, and the image is actually generated on the fly the moment you call the smart contract. So it actually generates the image and returns you the image directly from the contract. Anyway, that's a little bit of a sidetrack. Yeah, so on the end, like the idea is if we have profiles, right? This can not only be profiles for people, but this can be profiles for communities. For example, this is Refraction DAO, which is an artist community. You could do anything here. You could use this as a full-on DAO. You could put like mini apps in here that can allow you to vote or see the members or see what this DAO did in the last few days. They can issue things together. They could manage things together. Like the sky's the limit. I mean, it's all what people want to do, right? This is kind of what makes this so fascinating. It's kind of this MySpace for crypto. And the thing is not only for crypto. This is the point. It's like, how do we make Web3 interesting? Because on the end, Web3 can be used for so much more, right? You could be a DJ like Nexus here, and you have gigs, right? You have fans, you do things. So what about you create a fan token, for example. You sell it, or when the people come to your concert, they can scan a QR code, they can get like a proof of attendance. And the moment you know who has a proof of attendance, number one, you know who attended your event, how often. And number two, you could now use that to give them a fan token, or you maybe sell it as a kind of donation, right? And now you have a direct way to engage with your fans. For example, next time they come to a concert, they can go backstage because they came really often, right? That's the stuff where Web3 starts to tie into the real world and to people outside of crypto. And it needs the identity first. You need an actual long-lasting on-chain identity. That's step number one. Then you need to have a way that you have ideally a universal interface, because if we have many different separate dApps, then we are in the same problem that we are today, right? DApp radar, list of 100 pages, you don't find anything. You can't explore. But when you make these profiles, and then you can basically see what profiles do, which is currently missing. We don't really have like a way to discover, so we currently just show the LUKSO Twitter, because that's where pretty much everything happens. LUKSO Twitter is where you find profiles, and right now there's the LUKSO Bandits Baklava thing going on, and people are going crazy on wearing these hoodies. That's a thing right now on LUKSO. So as you can see, that's all about that. This is a community that just started with this, and now they're going all bananas on it. So they're making these videos here where they do these crazy videos where they just like, I don't know, make videos. But the moment you have a feed, right, which is something we're working on, and you can really see what's happening on chain, and it's human understandable. So it's not like transaction XYZ and token moved from A to B, but it's like, hey, this guy, voted in this DAO, and these people are claiming this airdrop because there's an event going on, or people are, I don't know, like, becoming membership of this like living commune somewhere in Bali or whatever, right? Now you can really see, okay, people are using blockchain for organizing their community, organizing their life, connecting with their fans or the artists or the people they like, or just whatever art or creative people want to do. And that's really like brings Web3 to everyone. And this is not like a one platform with 5 things where we build the 5 features. This is where it's a little trickier to explain, because it's the same like when you explain Ethereum in the beginning, right? Like, you can build anything on top of this. And just because I proposed ERC-20, now everybody thought, and in the early days, by the way, everybody thought, oh, Ethereum is for tokens. That's where you can create tokens. That's what I thought Ethereum can be for, right? Because the Ethereum Foundation somehow magically made this token thing, and now everything is tokens. But Ethereum is everything, and LUKSO is Ethereum. So LUKSO is everything, but now has the right foundations. Now you have a social profile, and now you have ways that you can interact them in a human, visible form. We have a browser extension, we have a mobile app, we have all kind of tools, and it will only get better. And you can obviously have more than one profile, right? So
If I could summarize kind of everything you're saying. By the way, this is really interesting. We're almost going from blockchain right now, which is primarily transactional,
yeah, exactly.
to now with LUKSO. Now we're adding this idea of maybe it could also be relational.
Absolutely.
Like, we
That's
can
the
share
main
more than, yeah, and that's actually quite interesting. Well, maybe for the audience, like what is it right now that is preventing us from, if LUKSO did not exist, like you created LUKSO to enable kind of the relational aspects, the social aspects, the it's a different type of coordination.
Yeah.
What is it right now about you know without LUKSO? Why cannot we do that with the current kind of the infrastructure that we have?
I mean, number one, because you're missing the digital identity, the actual
Digital.
long-lasting on-chain digital identity.
Got it.
That is
Okay.
the number one thing that is missing. And that's missing since a long time. And people try to create digital identities, but they never try to create it in a standardized, universal, and uniform way that is extremely generically built This is the most important thing. It needs to be built to encompass and allow anything. It cannot be built just for use case A, B, C, right? And that's a hard thing to do.
It has to be standard.
It took 7 years. So ERC 725, which is the foundation of the universal profiles and also other things, I proposed that in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
That was, I made basically the first smart contract account proposal back in the day. It was the early version of it. Over the last 7 years, we built it out. So now it's this full thing that is a lot more things. So you need that. You need to have. It looks on the end like technical. It looks like smart contracts, with a key manager and blah blah blah. But you need that on-chain identity, because then you can not only make it your profile, like for example, he's like making this clothes and character design and whatnot. You can not only use it as like something to showcase or even connect your Web 2 social stuff, right? So it's not anymore like separating, oh, this is my Web 3 world and that's my Web 2 world. You can all be putting it in one place because there shouldn't be a difference between the two. But the Web3 world allows you to do also transactions, allows you to give things away and own things, which you can't do in the Web2. You don't own anything. On top of this is the first digital identity you will ever truly own for yourself, because that sits on a decentralized network that is currently like run by, I think, 140,000 validator keys, which I guess is like 500-600 nodes, fully decentralized. We never run a validator in the network, and we don't run one now. It's fully just run by people. It was also initiated by people. We just gave them the way to generate the initial Genesis block, and they just ran the network all on their own, and it's literally decentralized run. That means that's an account no one can take away, not even us.
Yeah.
In this case, Universal Everything is just the interface, and there's many interfaces to your account already. In fact, there's an NFT marketplace. Your profile is everywhere at the same time. Like that's the difference of an on-chain account versus a Web2 account. Your profile exists on all platforms that want to display it. It's not confined to a single platform. And this marketplace obviously is about NFTs, but it's the same profile. As you can see, it's the same person.
Now the universal profile.
That's the number one most fundamental thing that we were missing. And we built a lot of other things that will enable really cool protocols down the road, which is the interaction between your tokens and profiles and all kind of things. But that was missing. Number one, it solves. We have the better fundamental. Number two, it solves the UX problem, because now you can have an onboarding where the private keys don't matter anymore. They could be even owned by a third party. Then they give you control over the profile. Now you control it with your own keys. You throw the old keys out. Now they don't control the profile anymore. Now you have only control. You can have a profile basically that can be centralized started, move to full decentralized, and move back again to centralized. It can move any way, because you can have many different systems controlling your profile. For example, if you look at my profile, each of these entries that you see here is its own private key. So I have an iPhone, for example, that holds a key. I have a ledger that works for recovery. Universal Page, actually, the page you saw before, has its own key as well to control my profile, and there's a permission system so you can restrict things. This browser extension has its own key. There's a recovery system that has its own key, and they all then have their own separate access to my profile and can do things on chain. So it's like solving that identity problem is the biggest piece, because that really prevented us from having the good UX. But then also, because you create a profile and people start to identify with it, we have an on-chain follower system. That means you can follow addresses, and obviously they all need to be on-chain. So all of these people who follow him, in this case, are profiles themselves. So this is kind of like the first followers that no one can ever cancel, and that are fully transparent and definitely only done by the people who want to do them. It's like we couldn't really create this truly decentralized, social web, if you will, that's only ruled by protocols and smart contracts. And and this smart contract, for example, this follower system is so simple. It's a simple smart contract that no one can ever change, and it just stores mappings from one address to another. And now you have a forever follower system on chain.
That is
It's those
so
basic
interesting.
things that we
Yeah.
need, that people care about. Like, this is the
Yeah.
most important thing, is people need to care about. And if you have a profile that you have followers on, that you did work for, that you really spend time making pretty, that you hold your important assets on. So imagine you have not only meme coins, as you see on LUKSO right now a lot, but imagine you have a token that says, I'm the member of this DAO, or I cleaned up the beach, or I've been at those parties of this famous DJ or musician, right? That's the collectibles that you care. We have that in Ethereum. The problem is it's on one of your 10 wallets that you probably, the moment you need it, you don't remember which of the wallet it was. And then on your phone, you didn't import the tokens, so you don't see them. On your computer, you have it at home, but then you have not connected this to the POAP app, so you don't know exactly here. And then the moment you want to use it, it doesn't work. And like, it's just a mess, And because of this mess, even though they're good ideas and there were implementations being built, it was just unusable for people.
Yeah.
But if I have one or many universal profiles, maybe I have 2 or 3, I care about them, I definitely will use them to collect all my stuff. And if I want to showcase it to the public, I put it on my public profile that I want to show everybody. So now I will remember next time I go to this club, I just need to let my profile scan. The thing can check if I own a certain balance of a certain amount of tokens, and I get in for free, or I get I don't know, like discount, or I get backstage because I've more than 100 of that artist token that is currently playing, and he said, hey, everybody with more than 100 gets backstage because I know my fans, and I love them. So this is the social aspect of
Yeah.
the Web3 we have not even begin to explore because the foundations were not there. And it takes a long time to build the right foundations, hence why LUKSO is 7 years in the making. But once you have them and once it comes together, it's like Ethereum again. You can build anything, anything can become possible. And because we have the grid, and because you can obviously connect to DApps, you can now do this in such a way that you can easily interact with apps. So app developers can just build little apps that sit under people's profiles, and then I can interact with them. Now I can, for example, message Griegel because that mini app can know I'm under his profile, and I just one click connect it and assign the message to prove that I'm controlling this profile actually, and I could send him a message in his chat box,
Interesting.
just on his profile. This is the kind of things that can be built right now, and everything is social by default because he is already a profile. He's not
Yeah.
just a random wallet. And that really enables now DApp developers who wanted to build in the social space to actually have a network on which every user is actually identifiable, which just makes it just so much more interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
what I love about this is it's you know, really the person that, proposed the ERC-20 standard is probably the only person that can look at the system, criticize it, and then make improvements to it. And I think people will be on board. This is incredible. Tell us where LUKSO is right now. Can everyone use it?
Yeah. Everybody can go to Universe Everything, create a profile right now.
Okay.
Also, the other thing is you don't need a Lux because these new standards allow transaction relay services. That means someone else can pay for the gas. And currently we have one running that pays for your gas. So you just need clicks to get the profile. There's also a mobile app. You can download the Universal Profiles mobile app and you have a profile. In this case, you still need to enter a password, which we will get rid of too. So that's even more seamless. But Web3 should be completely like barrierless, right?
Yeah.
That's the idea. So where we are at right now, mainnet is live. We have built the standards and the foundations. It's all pretty much live. What we're working on is improving the tools. Obviously, it's stability. It's making it bug free. It makes more performant. Optimizing on that front. The biggest piece, as you see, is missing is discoverability, like seeing really what everybody's doing. That's the thing we need to work on. We also want to work on a few mini apps that allow a full circle moment. Full circle means full circle not just for the token trader, because that is what Web3 gives you as a full circle right now, like buy and sell something, but full circle for like an artist or for a collective or for a community or a meetup, right? So soon you will be able to create your own tokens on Universal Everything just with a few clicks. You can create your own NFT, your own token, give it whatever purpose and meaning you want. Say if it's transferable or not transferable, if you can only own one per profile or many. And then we will create ways that you can distribute it. I mean, there's already an airdrop tool, so you can easily airdrop to your followers. You can airdrop to people that have a certain other asset. We will build a mini app that you can sell it. You could literally run an ICO then on Universal Everything. And then there needs to be a verification app, a simple web app that you can just verify in real life that someone holds a certain balance. And now you have a full circle for all the social use cases that go beyond just the trading aspect, because now this can be checking if you have a ticket to get in, or checking if you have certain tokens to be backstage, or checking in a conference if you hold a certain NFT to get the free merch, or whatever the heck people come up with, like a meetup or a special members group or God knows what. In fact, there's actually already a chat app, Common Ground, that you can use that also has already token gating, and you can log in with your universal profile. So it's kind of like Discord for Web3, Common Ground. And so all of these are pieces of that new social decentralized web that's coming. And there's still a lot of work to be done, but it's already here. And if you're an early adopter, if you want to understand what's coming and what will be the new foundation of the Web3, then Universal Everything is the place to go. And the LUKSO Twitter, given that we have no discoverability, you need to go to LUKSO Twitter and figure out what people are talking about, or just type in the profile names and figure out if you find a good one. But we will build all of these things to make that more transparent.
What's your plan for adoption? Because this is a clear unlock to the current state of Web3 infrastructure. But we know that really great technology or a new innovative technology sometimes doesn't always win because of the adoption problem, right? And people are very hesitant to change. So what are your plans around that?
So on the end, when it comes to adoption or even AI or anything else, right? Like you need to provide something that you can do only here and nowhere else. That is a reason why people want to be going somewhere. Like obviously people are not going to change to like X, right? That's why even like going from X to Farcaster, which pretty much looks the same, is a hard sell, even though one is decentralized, the other is not. And that's exactly what happens when you provide those full circle moments, because the users that I see for the new Web3, that's not the user that you have right now in Web3. It's not like the investor of like 2016. It's not that bro from next door that heard his friend making money and bought then a meme coin himself. It's not those kind of people. That's the old Web3. That's the current Web3 that's going to be less important or interesting. It's the artist, it's the musician, it's the creative person, it's the people that want to be part of a community, the people who queue up on Supreme stores, the people who want to be part of like some cool event or party somewhere, the people who go to Burning Man. It's the people that want to create a different kind of way of engaging and being part of a community, or maybe creating a new world, creating network states, whatever. They need this as a foundation. There's no other way. And it hasn't happened in Ethereum the last 10 years. So why will it happen now if the foundations are the same? And I strongly believe the foundations were the problem. Like we're not going to see that anytime soon. And even though you can hack something together that kind of feels similar, there's at some point a limit. Same like you can create a hybrid electric and it's going to be cool, but at some point people realize it's not exactly the same as an electric car. It doesn't drive the same and has a lot of like drawbacks to the full thing. And it's the same here. Like people will at some point the protocols will come that will only be possible on that new place, and then you have the human aspect. And without engaging with the human aspect, without really making it interesting for normal people, without making it accessible, where the blockchain part actually disappears. Sure, there's still transactions, but ideally we can make look really seamless or make them look really human friendly, right? And then it's only about like how does community and how people engage. And obviously this is it's a slow growth. This is not going to be an overnight, millions of people coming. I mean, it could be any mini app on Universal Everything could completely blow everything out of the water tomorrow. You never know. But it's likely going to be this step-by-step adoption where the early adopters realize this is a tool for their community that they're using now in new ways and had no touch points with Web3 before. And then the next group comes and the next person comes, and then there's this artist who makes money or better engages with his community, then some other adopts it, and so on. It's going to be this word of mouth growth.
Yeah.
And then there's obviously waves coming of attention, and that brings then more in, and so on and so on. But there's no silver bullet when it comes to attention, because we are in the crypto space, which is this massive echo chamber of so many projects. Everybody says they have the super solution to everything, while they just at best made a website with some half-baked something in the background, if at all, or sometimes just a website. And fundamental tech is just harder to perceive why it's different if it looks in from the outside. Same like a electric car looks like any other car. It's just different when you sit in it. And it's harder to build because you really be doing the fundamental work. So that took a long time. Hence why LUKSO has been around for a long time, and people wondered, okay, what are we doing? Where is this? Why is this not 3 months later already this big Facebook replacement? Because the good stuff and the real stuff does take the time, but when time comes, then it's going to change everything.
Yeah. Have you looked at, in terms of adoption and growth, have you looked at Kaito as a potential channel to reach new audiences for LUKSO?
I haven't heard of Kaito, but is this these kind of engagement tools where you do tasks and stuff?
No, it's not a questing platform. It's Kaito is instead it looks at who has influence online within the crypto Twitter space, and then it's actually been
on-chain stuff.
That's right. It's actually quite effective. I recommend definitely looking at Kaito as people are calling it, attention is very, very hard to get. But once you have it, it's also really hard to keep. But Kaito is one of those channels that, for some reason or another, has been very, very helpful for projects.
Yeah. So they haven't integrated the LUKSO chain yet. That's why you wouldn't know what people do on LUKSO. Integrations on LUKSO, even though it's Ethereum, is a little more challenging with platforms like these because they all are based on ERC-20, right? They just track ERC-20 transfers. It's not very hard to adopt the new token standards that are called LSP7 and LSP8. It's very simple, but you still need to do that extra effort
need to integrate it.
that you wouldn't need to do for ERC-20. That's why integrations like platforms like these, and actually we looked at this, and it's definitely going to be useful. Yeah, absolutely. Especially because it also tracks socials and stuff like this.
Yeah,
we actually have looked at this, and it's definitely something we can have a look again. It's also used AI. I remember. This is pretty cool. Yeah, there's a lot of useful things. On the end, it's always a measure also of when do you want to have the real attention. If your bike is pretty good, but you haven't fully you screwed on that pedal, do you want now a lot of people to jump on it and go crazy riding and test it out to the max? Maybe not yet. So we're still this year in this phase of bringing out these tools and improving our tools. But if you're an early adopter, if you want to build something, if you want to discover the community, which we have a very strong community, sometimes complaining, sometimes super supportive, and right now running around with a pink bandit mask. It's probably one of the most active and more engaging crypto communities that I know of. Definitely. And it has been around for years. So many of those have been around for 5, plus years, and they went through lots of things. And there's not many projects who have that. And maybe also as a side note, in our project, we don't fake things. We don't fake transactions. We don't make fake number growth. We don't make bots. We don't use bots. We don't have, even though sometimes our community does look like a bot when they write on people's comments, I think it looks literally like they're bots, but it's because they're so hyped and so crazy that they're actually really like a shill on everything. But it's all like, it's a real community. Like
Organic.
like
It's
we
real.
have on-chain transactions. So we have around 9,000 unique visitors, 10,000 unique visitors on Universal Everything per month. We have around 1,000 to 3,000 active users on chain. And that's the only number that matters to me. If you have actually active users on chain, it's people who make at least one transaction in the time period. These are real people that are on chain doing things. And that's the only metric that matters for Web3. You know, everything else, if you don't do anything on chain or it's fake transactions and bots, then you have nothing. You just fake everything. But if you have real people making actually on-chain things, then even though the discovery is not there yet, it just shows that this is probably one of the more busy places in Web3.
Yeah,
Because
it shows some
many
product
don't even have
market fit.
remotely anywhere between that. And even Farcaster, you know, I mean, ranges from 20 to 50, 80,000 active users a month. And that's a place with 1 million actually users subscribed, right? And you know, our little blockchain super undervalued here has like 2,000 a month. You know, it's still price not always reflects activity or what people are building. That sometimes it's just decorrelated, given that everybody is just looking at the next 10x pump coin or whatever, you know. And right now everybody's cautious anyway, and the space is completely saturated with people have all bought and sold everything already, and now they're just waiting and seeing if like Trump doesn't kill the world and somehow economy gets stable or not, and nobody knows, you know. So
well, Fabian, this has been super helpful and really interesting. Thanks for all your contribution to blockchain in general, but especially Ethereum. And I will share in the show notes everything about LUKSO and how to find you. And hopefully people will jump in and start experiencing the LUKSO experience.
yeah, awesome. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people to welcome you and show you around and educate what's possible. And
Excellent.
developers, that will be the most interesting because they are the one who can build so much on
Yeah,
these new fundamentals, and that's the most interesting.
perfect.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely.